Hi, I'm Kareem Fahmy, and I wrote A Distinct Society. I'm from Canada. I'm actually from right close to where this play takes place. I'm a playwright, I'm a director. I've lived in New York for about 20 years now, making theater. I'm having sort of a debut with A Distinct Society, which is my first professional play at this level. The play is set in a real building. It's called the Haskell Free Library and Opera House. It has been around since 1901. It's this beautiful historic building that is built over the border of Quebec and Vermont. The reason this building started to become a little, maybe you could say controversial or get some buzz, is that when the Muslim ban was put into place back in 2017, there were families that were being separated by the ban. So there were, people who were in the U.S. who could not leave the U.S., otherwise they would not be allowed back in. There were people, obviously their family members, who could not enter the U.S. to see their loved ones, their friends. And what was discovered is that people started to use this library as a meeting place so that people could come from the Canadian side and people could come from the US side and see their families in the library. So sort of a heartwarming story, one would think. And it is a beautiful, heartwarming story. But then invariably, this started to ruffle some feathers with Homeland Security. So people started cracking down on having these family visits. So when I heard about this story and realized this is happening basically in my backyard, I thought, well, what an amazing story to get to tell on stage. I loved the theatricality of that idea of you could put this big building on stage with a big line of tape down it, and it's one building that's in two countries at the same time. And as I began writing this play, inspired by this place, I started thinking a lot about my own sort of childhood in Canada. My family is from the Middle East. Both of my parents from Egypt. They immigrated to Canada in the 1960s, so I was born in Sherbrooke, Quebec, which is a place that's one of the characters in the play is from there. One of the biggest things that was going on within my time growing up in Quebec, it's still happening now, was this very intense movement towards the province of Quebec, which is a French-speaking province in an English-speaking country like Canada, becoming its own country, separating from the rest of the country. So one of the major events that's talked about a lot in the play is this referendum for Quebec separation, which happened in 1995. So it was the first thing I ever got to vote for. I had just turned voting age. And this was a razor thin, this is maybe like a historical thing that many Americans don't think a lot about, but it was, just a handful of votes that made it so that Quebec did not separate. But otherwise, that there would be a whole new country in North America. And that conflict between English-speaking Quebecers and French-speaking Quebecers, and really between Quebec and the whole country, was a pretty volatile time. And so it made me think about, where divisions come from and what is a country anyways, right? Is it people? Is it language? Is it culture? And so all of these ideas of how do we exist in a political system that sometimes becomes very sort of divisive and corrupt? Do those divisions and those corruptions, how do they affect us on a day-to-day level? So the 5 characters in this play are all dealing with divisive political ideas, corrupt political ideas, and just trying to live their lives. And so you go on this journey with these 5 characters who are all sort of living that experience and figuring out how to navigate it. I think there's a deep sort of human connection to the story that has continued to resonate over these years. And so it doesn't feel like a little period piece. Yes, it is. It is by definition now a weird period piece. It's November of 2017, right? But it's on this sort of universal story of how do we kind of overcome these corrupt systems around us? And we're all living that every day. Libraries are really special places because they are both about introspection. It's I can go inside myself, and also oh my God, look at how much there is to offer to the world, And that to me is very much the same thing as the theatrical experience. It's you go to the theater and you're going to experience a story that you didn't expect, right? That hopefully is going to open you. It's going to open your mind. It's going to open your heart. It's going to make you think about things. And so I think they're really special spaces. I think they're all filled with a sense of possibility, which is also the same about a theatrical experience. So much of what makes a library special is about that it is for all. And I was interested in this play of like how it becomes like, no, actually it's not for all, sorry, it's for some. You're not allowed in here. I'm glad to see that like some of those political systems have now fallen away, but who knows what's coming down the road. Don't miss the world premiere of A Distinct Society at Pioneer Theatre Company, January 27th to February 11th.